There we go. All right, we are live. And yes, Nate, I was just saying I got to work on my radio voice. I feel like you got a pretty good one.
What's going on, guys?
welcome back to the show. So this is the Clay and Company podcast. We are on episode 4. We're on episode 4. I just learned how to put it onto Spotify, so it is on now. Spotify and I think YouTube are the 2 spots. And the guest today is none other than Nate Babner. So Nate, I've known Nate for a long time now, probably since we were in I want to say 6th grade. And he is just a legend all around. But more importantly, right now, he's a legendary person in the sales space. We may or may not dive into the sales realm of stuff, but yeah, legend in the sales space. And Nate and I have gone on some epic adventures over the past year together, and looking forward to doing some more. So Nate, give him a little background on yourself. I don't know how you typically describe, do your intro. So I'm curious to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been asked to give an intro in a while now, but first and foremost, I love it. No edits, just cut right to it, jump right into it. Hey, nobody will know. Nobody will know. But to give you guys a little bit of a rundown, well, before we do get into it, I want to say, thank you for having me. Really, really grateful to be here. Albeit, even if this hits a couple of ear holes out there, it's just happy to be heard and have people listening. So I appreciate you having me on. Very grateful to be here. And first formal in front of the camera podcast. I'm usually a behind the scenes guy. I've operated a number of podcasts, but it's nice to be on as a guest as opposed to an interviewer. So my story is pretty simple. Let's kind of just touch on what I'm doing currently right now. As Clay talked about, I am in the sales space, inbound closer over at the 0% team, passionate about what I do, talking with people all day, putting them on that path to financial independence, and there's no better path to be on. Other things go ahead.
You're clearly good at talk. As you guys can already tell, Nate's a talker. That's one of his skill sets. He's good at talking. So this will be super easy.
It's got its costs and its benefits. I've been told it's a great thing. I can fill up airwaves. I mean, you could leave me on here for 3 hours and everybody will be sleeping. I'll be talking all day long.
I love it.
It suits my wheelhouse, right? And it's funny because as I start to tell a little bit about myself and my story, this wasn't the path I originally ended up on. I went to school. I thought to myself, my original plan, I wanted to backdoor the sports industry, right? I wanted to get into the sports industry. Growing up, playing sports, naturally, I want to get into that industry. As you can imagine, being one of the most competitive industries out there to get into, my backdoor was going the analytics route. And I played around with a couple of things, looking at some internships, realized really quickly, it's not as glamorous as it looks. And you make about 2 to 3 times working anywhere else than you do in sports. So doing the exact same job, whether you're a database administrator, a developer, whatever it is that you're doing, you make about 1/3 of the actual wages that you would make in industry. So I saw that very quickly, decided, okay, I'm just going to go off, do a number of things. But I come from a very technical background, got a degree in information systems and business analytics. And as I'm operating right now, actually, I do have a business that I operate outside of sales, very, very small, do a couple $100 worth of revenue.
Crushing it,
but crushing it, absolutely. I actually just finished up a project today over from the guys at VMG Management, NFL agency group. And so I'm doing analytics for them. So I get to taste that, what I wanted to do. And it's nice to do it on the side, do it on my own time. But we just finished up a little project for Garyon Conley. Clay, I know you know Garyon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think people realize how difficult it is. Even a couple $100 business, first of all, it's doing exactly what you want to be doing or what you thought you wanted to be doing. So that experience is literally it's invaluable. But then on top of that, it's hard to get clients for stuff. People underestimate the difficulty in even just starting a small business that makes you a couple $100 passively a month or something like that.
Right. And that was the path that I went on. And what I'm finding out right now is as I'm going through all the scaling opportunities, right, being able to over deliver and add extra value to what was discussed now has put me in a bunch of other connections, right? So this management group is now going out, sharing my information with all the other small agents in the market to where that they can afford this type of service for their clients because it adds that type of value and it's fairly inexpensive. So it's all about getting, like you just said, Clay, it's easier said than done, right? Even if you're making a couple $100 doing freelance consulting or any other business, it's just having that one connection, right? And that's what's really taken me down this path. So this is now the second project we've worked on. They're so excited about this one. They're actually handing me a third right when we get done with this. So
Dang,
that's
nice.
kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super, super huge. I mean, that's obviously not your only stream of income too, which makes it even better. But so growing up, like me and you played lax together. We were lax bros back in the day. And then obviously I played hockey when I was younger, but I stopped when I was in like 6th, 7th grade or something like right when I was coming to Ohio. You played hockey all the way throughout. Like what did you like really want to do when you were younger? I feel like the analytic side of sports was the thing where you were like, all right, I want to try to get realistic now. And this is what I think I want to do to like get back in the sports industry. But what were you like actually like if you were younger and you were to say like, this is what I think I want to be when I'm older? And not that I think anyone really knows, but I'm curious, like what were you like, aiming for yourself when you were like super young playing sports?
Yeah. That's a really great question. And I got to say it with a kind of tongue in cheek because I didn't know how, the expectations of it, but naturally, like any kid growing up and playing sports, you want to play it at the highest level, right? For me, that was going and being a professional hockey player. Having played from 7 years old on, I realized really quickly, I mean, I'm ultra realistic when it comes to some of these things. I didn't have the mindset, man. I wasn't cut from the type of cloth that you need. I mean, the type of individuals, not only from a talent perspective that make it, but from the mindset perspective, right? I just didn't have that. I wasn't, up at 4 or 5 a.m. every single morning getting skates in and then doing another 2 hours after practice. And that's when I realized really quickly that I liked a lot of other things, right? And yes, I still had that dream. I still wanted to do it, but I knew deep down I didn't have the work ethic to get there, right? I probably had the talent because at the end of the day, talent makes up for a certain extent, but it's the extra effort. It's the type of mindset that a lot of these individuals have that take them up that path. And I was just realistic with myself. It's, I didn't have it. And it's something that I work on every single day because it carries over in everything you do. But that was the nature of it growing up.
But so it wasn't lax. You weren't into pro lacrosse?
Man, that was one of those sports I decided really quickly if I hated going out to practice every single day, that wasn't a sport I wasn't going to continue. So I think I played freshman year.
No, we both quit at the same time.
Yep.
We quit.
And
Matt quit.
I wasn't going to like out in the rain and the snow, man. I didn't have that type of killer instinct. And I played for fun. A lot of times what I did was I played for fun. Yep.
Well, that was the whole thing. That's why I asked this. Cause like when we were playing lacrosse, like it was, we all knew, like we'd look up like the Paul Rabels of the world and stuff, but we all knew there was nowhere to go with lacrosse. Like the best you could do was like get a scholarship in college. And like none of us really cared about that at the time when we were younger. So it was like, but like those middle school years, like that was so fun playing lacrosse. So I was curious because I knew like, obviously we played that together and then you played hockey. I'm always curious if anybody that we played lacrosse with was ever thinking like, man, I would love to like continue lacrosse.
But hey, I guess if you love the sport enough and that's what you want to do, you better get a freaking accounting job too, though. You know what I mean? You don't make a living playing that sport. At least not right now.
Man. Yeah, I always thought it was going to be one of the sports that took off, and then it literally just never did. Like my dad was always like, it's growing like every year. Like it's good. Because I was like pretty naturally just decent at lacrosse when we were growing up. And then what I kind of started to realize is I was like, I feel like kind of anyone could get pretty decent at lacrosse.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I don't know, Clay, have you been following it all in the last couple of years? Because they've changed the business model. So what happened in pro lacrosse was you had Major League Lacrosse, and then Paul Rabel actually came with his own league, which was the Premier Lacrosse League. And they actually just came together. So PLL acquired Major League Lacrosse. And so now there is one main league, and it's touring. So it's like golf. Right? As opposed to having all these individual cities, it's like a traveling circus. So that business model, if there were to be that trajectory of growth in the sport, not to have this be an entire lacrosse conversation,
No,
but
yeah.
that's the idea. I think that's the idea. And they have players are owners. So the players are the owners of the league, and it's moving in that direction. They're adding new teams every year. So if I had to take a guess,
Interesting.
I mean, keep your eye on it over the next 5 to 10 years, but they're definitely I mean, you're not going to go, local. You're not going to take this hyper local model and scale it, especially in a sport that just doesn't have a ton of traction.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I'm just thinking back to like all the stuff, because like when I was younger playing sports too, I was like it was so much fun, like all the different sports and stuff. But then like, yeah, as you get older, you're right, that like level of like commitment that you have to make to actually go to in each level just starts getting harder. So it's like even high school, you're like, oh man, this is like a pretty big commitment just to play high school football. Like I'm gonna have to work out every single day. I'm gonna have to, like, the levels just start creeping. And like in some cases, I feel like it strips the fun out of it a little bit, which gets annoying. But
it did, right? And that's why I think you see a lot of people transition out of it, and you have to bring it together, right? You can't play 5 different things coming through high school because there's such a large commitment at it, to where when we were young growing up, you literally could play everything. I tell people this all the time. Outside of swimming and organized fighting, I probably touched them all. I mean, lacrosse, hockey, basketball, soccer, you name it, even
tennis?
Wrestling. I never played tennis. My brother Luke played tennis.
Oh, Luke played tennis.
But I'm talking like organized. But pretty much everything else, I got a taste of. I mean, even wrestling. Yeah. One of my claims to fame, I've never actually lost. I'm 1-0 on the mat.
That's incredible.
And I retired. I went out. I wrestled my first match, and I said, that's it. That's all I need. I'm 1-0. I'll go out for the rest of my life as an undefeated wrestler. You
and Khabib are actually maybe 2 of the only people I know left that are undefeated in the sport of fighting in general. Yeah. That's impressive. You're in that echelon of people.
Thank you. I mean, Babner Khabib will be next.
Yeah. No more McGregor. Yeah, no. He's been defeated. So that's not. Okay, so this past year, like obviously we've been doing a bunch of like wild trips and stuff to fill people in. We went to, well, actually Nate and I, like, quarantine ended up happening beginning of last year. I hadn't seen Nate in a while. We grew up together. We grew up in the same town in Ohio. And then pretty much this past year, I hadn't seen you in like maybe like a year or 2 since sometime in college, I would imagine. We went to different colleges. You went to OU. I went to OSU. And then we started working out together over quarantine. And then from that point on, we literally went to, we came to Texas. And then, so Nate was part of the group that, it was like me, Nate, and Derek when we were doing those crazy runs, to kind of like, it kicked off the whole journey to running 100 miles. And then, Nate was part of the group where he came and he ran the half marathon when we did the marathon. Then we ended up going to Montana. We did a Montana trip. And then Nate ended up moving to Austin, Texas, which is where I live, which is awesome. And this year, this is where I want to get at. This year, we're going on one epic adventure coming up, which, dude, I hope all like the logistics of it gets worked out. But you see this? You got your calendar right there? Yeah, I got my calendar. Nate and I both got these. If you guys can see, those of you who are listening, I guess, we have these big ass calendars. Shout out to Jesse Itzler. Basically, they're meant to give you 1 year at a glance, so we can essentially plan out all the trips that we want to do. And right now we have a trip planned to go hike Mount Kailash with Sadhguru. So we're going to go with a guru and go hike Mount Kailash and go see like Lake Manasarovar and like all these crazy places. I think it's over in India, or it might be China. I don't really know. We're going to India first, but the actual Mount Kailash part, I'm not exactly sure where it's at. But anyway, Nate, fill us in. Like, how did you end up, like, first of all, how did we get reconnected? And also, like, what are you looking forward to most for this trip?
Yeah. So Clay, I think it's worth going back to the beginning, man. And for a lot of people out there that may have been listening, for a lot of individuals, 2020 was one of those years that got a lot down on their luck and things went awry and things went differently. I took advantage of that. And a lot of it, I got to credit back to Clay. Clay was the individual that was kind of, I want to almost think about my motivator and the real reason as to where I've been able to go on the journey that I've been able to. And it all started with just a simple reach out, right? I saw on social media, Clay
This was all you. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, hold on.
I was gonna say, I didn't start.
I'm not there yet. So first thing I did was I saw Clay was home, and I take notice of where individuals are at, because I want to have an understanding of who I want to start surrounding myself with. And as I look back on the past year, I mean, I was working for my dad in his business. I had stopped my software development job, and I was kind of between jobs, making about $20 an hour, give or take. I was pick packing and shipping packets and doing a lot of work like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't utilizing any of my real skill sets. And that all really changed really quickly. And a lot of it was a mindset shift. So just surrounding yourself with individuals like Clay, for example, took me to a level that I hadn't been in a really, really long time, probably ever, the more that I think about it. And really the main turning point, Clay, was our 7 days that we spent in Texas. This was the training camp.
Yeah.
Remember, an opportunity came up in 0%. Clay said, "Hey man, I think I have an opportunity for you." I said, "All right, let's give it a shot." I took it as, I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. I just want to get a foot in the door. One thing led to another, started on one side of the business, moved to another. But with that being said, those 7 days we spent in Texas, we were doing 6, 7, 8-mile runs. I mean, those were in like 97-degree heat. I still have screenshots of them. And we weren't runners, right? We don't do endurance running. We just did it as a mindset challenge. And I still remember, because, we talk about this with the memories, the type 2 fun that bake into your head, which we can talk about a little later. Yeah. But I remember it like it was yesterday. The very first run we were in, we were crossing that third bridge down on the trail. And I was giving up on myself. I said, I can't do this. I was walking and I was doing all that stuff. And that we ended up finishing that run, but I knew I didn't put my best foot forward. And we came out the next day. We ran twice as far, or at least another 2-3 miles. And I didn't stop once. And it was the longest run I had ever done in my entire life. And mind you, it was 97 degrees. But what it boils down to is the mindset I had coming in, right? It was, I wanted to take Clay's soul, first and foremost. Second, you take failure off the table and then you proceed. So it was a lot of self-talk, a lot of things, but you could feel, I mean, the sensation of barriers breaking, it's a real thing. You feel your whole body get like the numbness, and it just tingles, and that's you breaking barriers. But not to go out on too much of a tangent, that was, for me, that was my wake-up call. That was when I said, if I can do this, what else can I do? And that's when, that parlayed into the half marathon. And I've got to give myself, I got to take a little shot at myself, because I've kind of relaxed since then. Even when these guys went out and ran 100 miles, I was going to do the 50, and then it was bad time. Basically all the excuses in the book, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who looks myself in the mirror and says, hey, I just flat out, I didn't have the gonads to go about it like those guys did.
Okay, that was a risky one, but no, nonetheless, like that beginning part of, so like it was Derek. It was, I've had obviously if anyone watches my YouTube, we've obviously posted about the 100-miler and stuff, but basically Derek and Nate, you guys both had come down to visit me. And it wasn't like I was running either. I think that's like another thing, is like, I wasn't like a runner or like running a lot, but for some reason I knew, like, because of like one of the long runs I'd done in the past, which was only a few miles, I was always like, okay, running is like the best way to break down, like, especially if you're not a runner, running is the best way to just break yourself down and then show yourself that you can go a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. And so when you guys initially came down, Derek shows up and he is like 8 beers. Like, he had 8 beers the night before he showed up, and he's like 230 pounds. Like, he's out of shape. And then Nate, you were in like pretty good shape in terms of like, body and health wise, but it's not like you were running either.
Right.
And I was in decent shape. So I was like, all right, well, let's just go out on a run. And then it was literally like, it was like 3-4 miles the first day. Then it was like 5 miles the second day. Then it was like 8 miles the third day. And then by the fourth day, you did like 9 or 10, and Derek and I did 13 or something. Yep. And then yeah, that period of time was like, it was the same catalyst. Yeah, not only for you guys, but same for me. Like me and Derek, like I'm just, first of all, I'm shocked that Derek was willing to even do
Dude,
that. Like, because
have you had
at
him
least
on, Clay? Have you had him on the pod?
we recorded an episode and it like the audio got messed up, so we got to do
Gotcha.
another one.
You
But
gotta
I
you gotta give
definitely
that to your
will.
listeners because he's a different breed.
Yeah, dude, it was so interesting because like when he came down, he's like the type of person that just says yes to everything. Like he'll just be like,
Yep.
yeah, let's do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, even if he fails, it's not that big of a deal. But like when he was like running and like going and like doing that stuff, I was sitting there thinking like, I can't give up. Like Derek's still like, he's still running. Like, and, you know, we're 13 miles in. It took us like 2 hours and 50 minutes to complete a half marathon. Which is so bad.
That's
But
pretty long.
regardless,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, we ran into some hills and stuff, and things got rough. But we did it without stopping, which is even more shocking because you'd think like, oh, they must have stopped at one point if it took that long. But nonetheless, that little point of time was like an incredible. Like you said, 2020 for a lot of people was like terrible. But then like for us, I feel like we like ascended and like
Yep.
got to a whole nother level. And I feel like 2021 with some of the stuff that we have planned is going to be a different type of in a like, I don't know, we're going to have different type of experiences this time. And I want to get your thoughts on this hike that we're going on through Mount Kailash.
Yeah. So, man, I actually just got my registration info a little bit earlier. It was a few days ago. I'm excited. Number one, this will be one of the biggest investments I've ever made in myself, which is always exciting. I think.
Yeah. How much is it, by the way? Do you know?
It's about $4,500 just for the trip. That's not including plane tickets, any of that stuff. I think you got to pay out of pocket on all of that, but I think they provide food and lodging.
Yeah.
But give or take, it'll probably be a $5,000-$6,000 expense. I mean, for a year, which is, not small for a lot of
business
individuals.
expense.
Yeah, business expense. There you go. now you're on the right track. But I'm nervous, but nervous and excited. I don't know what to expect. I think this is one of those things that you really can't have any expectations for. And I'm interested to find out what's going to come of it afterwards. I mean, maybe I'll be a monk, Yeah. I don't know if you thought about that. Maybe we'll become monks and we'll just stay up in the mountains and
we just like abandon everything.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So for the people that are listening, basically what we're doing is, so we took this program called Inner Engineering by Sadhguru, and I don't know how to describe Sadhguru to people. Just go look him up on YouTube. He's literally just like a guru, like quite literally. He's like an enlightened human being. And he has like just his philosophy on life and the way that he goes about everything, the way he teaches things. He's basically just trying to make sure that people live their lives to their fullest potential. And at the end of the day, obviously we want to do that. And some of his programs have been super helpful. But at the end of his inner engineering program, one of the things that we had found really through, I can't remember if it was, Mitchell and I were talking about it, but basically we found out that we could go hike in India, Mount Kailash, like where his like, we're going to go to his yoga center, which is like in India somewhere, where it's like this crazy setup where like, he is like basically made this crazy spiritual, almost like sanctuary where people can go and, I guess experience whatever they do there in terms of like meditation and things like that. But then not only that, we're actually going from that Isha Yoga Center to Mount Kailash. And then we're going on like, it's like a 2-week. Yeah, I think it's like a 2-week hike. I don't think we're hiking for 2 weeks, but we're like stopping in different parts of, I think it's like wherever Mount Kailash is. And again, I need to look that up, but we're basically going on this hike with Sadhguru through this area. And like, it's just going to be insane. I'm super pumped about there's a part that we're stopping called Lake Manasarovar. Have you looked anything up about that, Nate? Like that lake?
Is that, if that's the lake I'm thinking of, is that where Sadhguru did the video where he was like, with like the where it's got all these crazy energies around it? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, he did like, there was like some video where there's like a girl like laying there and like she literally, there's like a bowl of water above this girl's head. Like she's like laying on the ground
Yeah.
and there's a bowl of water above her head and it starts boiling. And like Sadhguru said, like there's like alien. He basically described this lake as like, he's like, yeah, the energy that's around there. He's like, he said it's like an alien airport.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, holy crap. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, I don't know if we're gonna come back and we're just gonna be like monks, or if it's gonna be like, one of those like, I'm sure something's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy in some way.
Yeah, there's going to be some spiritual awakening, and it's, I don't know, man. I'm nervous but excited, and it'll be something we never forget, right? It'll be an experience that we have for the rest of eternity, probably into other consciousnesses. If you want to get further than that.
Well, I was just gonna say, plus, like, we will know, like, the people that are like, oh, like, some people are like, oh, like, spiritual stuff is like very woo woo and like out there, and like, or same with like aliens, like, oh, I don't believe in that shit, like, that's whatever. We will, like, what I think about when I think about this trip is I'm like, we're gonna go find out, like, we're getting as close to the craziness of like spiritual stuff and like alien type stuff as humanly possible by going with a guru to like go hike this mountain. So like, we're gonna like fully involve ourselves, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna be able to be like, some of it might be bullshit, or like this is pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, man, I'm just excited for it, and it'll just be a good investment regardless of what happens. So that's my 2 cents. It's our Musogi, right? Like you say, it as we look back 10, 15, 20 years from now, 2021 will be the year of Mount Kailash. That will be the summarization of our year, assuming everything goes accordingly, logistics work out. But yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped. Plus, like, anytime, so kind of back to what you were saying with earlier, where you said something about type 2 fun. Like, anytime you go and you do something that's like a little bit hard or like uncomfortable or like way out there, that like, we're gonna be in India where we don't know anything about anything and going to hike this mountain with this guru and stuff. Like, it's gonna be a weird, uncomfortable kind of experience, but thank God we're doing it with like me, you, Mitchell, CJ. Like, we're gonna have a good group of people doing it. But also, like, those are like things like I'll never forget even the Montana trip, because like we hiked that one mountain with all the snow on it. Like, I'll never forget that one moment.
Yeah. We had this conversation a couple of days ago. As I think back, as I visualize that memory, I still feel the snow in my boots. You know what I mean? It wasn't that we exerted this crazy amount of energy, but at the end of the day, we had to, it's like anything, it's such a culmination. It's an analogy of anything you do, right? To get the views that we wanted to see, we had to put the 3.5, 4 hours of hiking in. And then when you've seen it, then you come right back down. And it's just a crazy experience. It feeds into that type 2 fun, Cleo, that you talked about, which is really how you create lasting memories, is when you have some type of physical challenge, something that puts you in an uncomfortable position. You really, think of it as a yardstick, right? And when you have these memories, and let's say you use kind of like a metal rod, the hotter that metal rod is, the deeper the indent is, right? And think of that as your memory. And so the more challenge, struggle, uncomfortableness that comes, the hotter that rod gets, and the deeper the imprint that it makes into your memory. And that's why, this was something we had listened to the other day. And for anyone out there listening, right, when we talk about why life speeds up, it's because we don't make as many of those memories as we get older and older. And that's something that not only I'm focusing on, but I know, Clay, you as well. That's something that you focus on.
Yeah, that's why we bought those big ass calendars is literally so we could put events on the calendar to where we know, like, oh, we're going to build crazy experiences. That's why like the Mount Kailash one's going to be so big. But going back to like, when you get older, time speeds up. I was thinking about that, and it actually, like, regardless of even like the memory thing, like where the older you're getting, you're not creating very many new like high emotional, intense memories. It's also just like a fact of like, if you're 5 years old, you're like, and you go through 1 year, let's say from 4 years old to 5 years old, 1 year is 1/5 of your life. But if you're 20 years old, 1 year is now 1/20th of your life. And then if you're 50 years old, 1 year is only 1/50th of your life. So like, in terms of like your actual reference point of like experience, when you're 5, like that 1 year feels like forever because it is like, it is
Right.
a fifth of your life. But then when you're 50, it's only a 50th of your life. So like, not only like, I feel like people uh, just overlook that simple fact, like that life actually is speeding up in terms of like your reference point on it.
Absolutely. Yep. I couldn't agree more. I've actually never heard that be said, but when you think about it and you boil it down to that, right? It's really simple. Right, your reference point is your years on this planet, and one
Yeah.
year with every year you get older is going to feel shorter and shorter and shorter, and
Yeah. Which
so
is
it's all about
weird.
making that time as valuable as you possibly can. And we're so blessed and grateful to have figured that out sooner than a lot of individuals
I know.
and have
Yeah.
the freedom to do it, right? We're in such a unique opportunity, the two of us. And it's not, I don't wake up a day and take this for granted, because there's a lot of individuals who just don't have this flexibility, don't have this agility within their lives. And since we do, we might as well take advantage of it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Oh yeah. That's why, like, I mean, we still haven't done our calendar planning. We got to plan some crazy trips and stuff. Cause like I was reading, there's a guy named Bill Perkins, and he has this book called Die with Zero, where he talks about like basically telling people why they should die with $0. Like he wants everyone to like spend their money. And he's talking about like spending money on experiences, literally like what we're doing. And he was explaining that like, he was like the trip that like me and you can take, like we're going to go to India, right? Like we could take this trip when we're 40, but the experience that we're going to have taking this trip when we're like 24 is a different experience than the trip that we would take when we're 40. So we'll never have the opportunity to get the experiences we can have when we're 24. So he's basically explaining to people, like, people are real stingy with money, and they're like, well, you got to save, always save for tomorrow, compound. And a lot of that's true. But at the same time, there's a balance to it. Like, if you can buy experiences now when you're in your 20s, like going on that trip, like go across the country and do something, is actually, like, if you think about it, more valuable now than if you were to do it when you're 40, 50, or sometime later on. Because you only have like let's say you have time, health, and money. Like you have those are your three resources that you're working with. When we're 20, like 24, 25 years old, we have probably less money, but we have probably really high health, and we probably don't have a lot of time. But for me and you, we've figured out a way to like get a little bit more time. And so now we should take these trips. But like, let's say you're 50 years old, you might have time and money, but now your health isn't there as much, and your
Right.
youth isn't there as much. And you're not going to go backpack. I mean, you could go backpack with a bunch of 20-year-olds or do something crazy, but like the experience when you have a family and kids and things like that, like other obligations, isn't the same experience for when you're 25 and you're like a free bird.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, something comes straight to mind for me, right? The younger you can do things, just the law. If you look at the law of compounding, right? Whether you look at return on investment, return on relationship, think of this as return on experience, right? The more time that you have after an experience, the more compounding, right, factors that it's going to factor into in your life. You're going to be able to have these higher level conversations with individuals. You're going to be able to take these experiences, learn from them, and they're going to pay dividends, right? When you do this when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, you only have so much time after the fact to really realize your gains on experience when we do look at return on experience. And I don't think anyone's ever said that phrase before. So that may be a first here on
Trademark.
Clay & Company. Yeah.
Trademark.
If you hear that again, you heard it here on Clay & Company first. But that's what comes to my mind, is that return on experience, which is, I don't care what it costs. I mean, I'm, like I said, grateful enough to be able to have the means to go about it. But even if it's just, taking a weekend trip in the car up to some place you've never been, and being able to have that return on experience, right? You don't remember the days you sit on the couch and watch NFL football all Saturday or all Sunday. You remember the days where you get out of your comfort zone, you do those types of things, and you get to have that return on experience. And that's what I'm really focused on. And I think you are as well.
Yeah, that's actually like, there's like, I don't know, that's why you have to be around the right people. Cause like, obviously these experiences are way more fun if you can go do them with, a group of people that you actually have fun with. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that like, they're sitting on their couch and doing that stuff because I haven't made plans to do anything else. Like it's as simple as like just making the conscious effort of like, all right, this weekend I just have to be the person that plans it. I'm gonna ask these 3 people. We're gonna go do a hike, or we're gonna go do something. Like when I asked you guys to go to Montana, I was like, I doubt anyone's gonna go. And then everyone was like finally down. I was like,
Let's do
hell
it.
yeah, like let's go.
Yeah. Well, you can create these experiences for others too, which I think is really important. I mean, this was a lot of these experiences have not been so much me going out and grabbing them, but just coming to the table, right? And it's that boils down to the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that's even better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being able to create these experiences for other people will not only give you more of that return on experience, but at the end of the day, you can share that, right? So that, you've been the example of me and you going to Mount Kailash. That's a tether that we will have together until we're
That'd
gone.
be great, right? Dude. That's gonna be such a crazy trip. I wish I could like let people know somehow like why I'm so excited about this, but I guess we'll see like once we go how crazy it is. But at the same time, like back to your point of like just being around the right people, like I was even thinking about it the other day, like Derek, Nick, and I, after me and you and the group ended up running that marathon, half marathon or whatever, that was a month into me running ever, a month into Derek and Nick running ever. And 1 month from that point, we went and ran 100 miles. But to your point, it literally wasn't even our decision. Tyler, who we were just hanging around, who was a runner, presented the opportunity and was like, I'm going to run this 100-miler. You guys should do it too. And like without Tyler literally pushing and like pretty much saying like, yeah, you should sign up for it right now. Like I was at his apartment and I signed up for the race at his apartment. When I signed up for it there, I had no clue if I was going to be able to do it. And then I somehow just coerced Derek and Nick into doing it. I was just same way I was trying to get you to do it.
Almost me too.
Yeah, because I didn't want to do it alone. So I was like, dude, first of all, I didn't even know if I could do it like physically. I was like, this might be too hard for me at the time. And so then when I convinced Derek and Nick to do it, I felt so much better because I was like, if we're gonna die out there, at least we're gonna die doing it together. And then Tyler didn't even end up doing it. So he like convinced me to do this race, which thank God, because otherwise Nick, Derek, and I wouldn't have had this crazy experience had it not been for him.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea, right? And I think that's what I was getting at. And it just goes to show, right? It doesn't always just come from your imagination. Usually it's the network, the individuals that you're going to surround yourself with are going to bring you those opportunities. And if they push you to do it, then, take that as a notice. So heck, maybe I should do this.
Yeah. Which, speaking of which, since Muzz is down here visiting, we got to convince Muzz to do something extraordinary while he's here.
We do, man. Muzz he's a type 1 fun type of guy, but I think once he gets a little taste of the type 2, I was a type 1 fun guy forever. I stayed within my comfort zone.
But what does type 1 fun mean? I know type 2 fun, but type 2 fun's like adventure, like like hard stuff, like challenging, physical, and all that. What's type 1 fun?
Type 1 fun to me is doing stuff within your comfort zone, right? Dave and Buster's, type 1 fun, right? I mean, who doesn't?
We got D&B's.
But no, it's having fun in your comfort zone, right? Watching football, watching the Bears game with Muzz, doing the types of things that you're comfortable doing, that you like to do, that you know that you'll have no problem accomplishing them. That's type 1 fun. And that's, I don't think that's actually ever been a phrase. I just,
we'll trademark that as well.
We will. I tell you what, they're going to have some intellectual property coming out of this podcast.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
We do know. We got to get Muzz going.
I'm trying to think of like some interesting, like, there's really not all that many, like you really got to kind of create your own fun, like in a certain sense. Cause like at the end of the day, like, dude, do you ever think about this? Like you're like going like city to city, like let's say we're traveling, like going and traveling is fun because you haven't seen that area before. But when you really boil it down, like within that specific city, it's cool to see different stuff. But for the most part, like the main things you can do for fun, like Top Golf, escape room, like they're everywhere. And like, that's pretty much it. Like go see a movie at the movie theater, go to the mall. Like what the hell else are you going to do for fun? You got to like come up with shit.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. And it's for a lot of you guys out there, it can be as simple as walking to go to a restaurant. I think that was the example that the individual on the webinar that we were listening to gave. Just as opposed to drive, walk 2 miles, and do different things like that. So you can create, if you want to go to Dave and Buster's, for example, or you want to have a great night at the Red Lobster, walk as opposed to drive, as opposed to doing those other things. Go, just walk 2-3 miles, have it take you an hour to get there. And I guarantee you it'll be a great meal because you put in all that energy to get there, like hiking a mountain, like doing anything. That would be classified as really low-hanging type 2 fun that doesn't have anything to do with spending money. You'd actually be saving money by doing that.
Well, and for some people, if you wanted to walk to Red Lobster, it's just down the street. Like
right out the window out here. I'm a regular. Don't shoot the messenger here.
Gold member.
I'm a regular. They know me by name when I walk in there. I'm going to go with the bottomless biscuits. Mondays are popcorn
crab
shrimp
cakes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Get yourself some crab cakes.
Couple Long Islands on the weekend. Nothing wrong with that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so real quick, obviously we got probably what time did you have to go? 4:30?
I got a hard stop here in about a half an hour, but I'm all yours.
Oh, okay. You got half. Okay. Yeah, because Muzz is coming over in 10, 15 minutes. Well, first of all, I was going to open it up to you to see if there's anything specific you wanted to talk about. Otherwise, I want to drill into some random stuff. But do you have anything specific that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
This was kind of impromptu.
Oh yeah. No. I prefer it that way. None of this is planned, and I want to make sure that it sticks. Yeah, as authentic as humanly possible.
Yeah. The only other thing I just want to touch on briefly is a little conversation we had prior to, and I'll keep this really short, to the point, sweet. For me, and this is for anybody out there listening, a lot of people will feel, stuck, depressed, anxious, whatever, all those emotions that come in, and you look and you see all these other individuals who are having all this success, and you get this this sense of, wow, I should be doing that, or I deserve this, or I deserve that. And I, what I realized for myself personally, you just get outside your comfort zone, do the types of things that require that. And it's so much easier said than done. But when it comes to accomplishing that goal, look at who's around you, right? And when you look at who's around you, you're going to realize exactly why you're in the spot that you're at, and change that. Have that be the very first thing that you change in anything that you do. And it doesn't mean get rid of old friends and cut ties with certain individuals. You can still communicate, still hang out with those different individuals, but just be conscious of that, bubble of people that you surround yourself with. Because for me, my life took a total 360. Clay, we were talking right that year, 2 years ago, and I don't want to get too deep into this kind of in the hey, I'm your mentor, your coach type deal, but it's at least important to touch on because I've got personal experience in it, right? It's when I reached out to you originally, I didn't know what was going to culminate of it, but the domino effect of just a simple, hey man, we can get together, do X, Y, or Z. I mean, above all the conspiracies that we talked about, which is another conversation.
We should dive into that.
I figured that's where we were headed.
That is where we're headed.
I mean, that was the big domino for me, right? I've read it in a number of books. Just knock down the big domino. And when that domino fell, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm in a position where I can move anywhere on the planet that I want to move. I'm creating immense memories with people, loved ones, friends, people who I care really deeply about. And I get to take my experiences, I get to take what I learned, and I get to share them, right? And be able to start to inspire some other people who may have been in my position at some point in time. Because, whatever you look at, it's not all, there's so many things that culminate to where an individual is at. And if you really peel back the layers, you'll realize that in some cases it was just one big domino. And that was what it was for me. My mindset changed, everything changed when that happened. And it all revolves back to that big domino, which is surrounding myself with an individual here like Clay. So for those of you guys out there listening, listen to what this guy has to say, take action on the items that he talks about, and it will take you anywhere that you want to go. I promise you that.
Well, yeah, I know. I was just gonna say I appreciate that, but I honestly, for everyone listening, first of all, it's always weird for me to accept a compliment, I would say. But at the same time, for me, like what in terms of like what Nate said when he said he just reached out and hung out, I was like, oh yeah, shit, I haven't seen Nate in, a couple years. Like, let's go hit a workout or whatever. For me, it was no big deal. And then, obviously through just hanging out together and doing a bunch of stuff, obviously it's been helpful and like whatever I can do to help somebody else, I'm always thinking that. And I feel like if everyone just has that mindset, like, Nate, for example, I was like, oh, like he's like probably really good at sales just because I've known him forever growing up. I know he's super good at talking to people. And we had an opportunity for somebody to join for a sales spot. So I was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. But it wasn't like I would have even known to do that had Nate not been the one actively that had reached out to me. And then from my perspective, I'm just trying to help whoever out that I possibly can, whoever's in my vicinity. And for us, yeah, it worked out perfectly. But what I do want to touch on is so when we initially were hanging out again, partially what we were talking about the entire time was all the conspiracies that were going on.
Not as much working out as there was conspiracy jibber jabber, but hey, we got both in.
Shout out to Jackson Hayes' garage, because Nate and I, essentially what we were doing is Nate reached out to me. It sounds like this magical story. Both of us have made leaps and bounds in terms of growth. In reality, we went to Jackson's garage and we started talking about conspiracy theories for 4 hours at a time. And then Nate's girlfriend would get mad and start kicking his ass. And it's just a whole no. So just seriously, back on the conspiracy train for a second, that time frame was one of the funniest, like weirdest time periods. It was like right during quarantine, just so everyone knows, like the second there was all the lockdowns and all the crazy conspiracies and the 5G and the lizard people and the adrenochrome, and all that good stuff. So Nate and I are like sitting in there and we're trying to we're putting all the dots together. Like, okay, so if Bill Gates is bad and 5G is bad, we're like doing all the dot connecting. Such a fun time.
And Clay, it was during that time where we were so new into all this. So all the dots that were laid out, they connected flawlessly because they had very little.
Still
back.
do. I mean,
that's in the other room. But they all connected together, and we would sit there for hours on end and just talking. It was I would go home, Clay, when we were done, and I would sit on the internet and watch these 2.5 hour long videos, and I was like this. I mean, listen. I mean, my jaw was on the floor. I was taking this stuff. It was preaching to the gospel for me. I was eating it up left and right, telling family, telling everyone. And, it is what it is, but at the end of the day, it's at least worth having the discussion. And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah, it was so much fun because guys, conspiracies are fun. Like, that's what people come on, they're fun as shit. Like, I don't care who you are. Like any conspiracy on any side of the coin, wherever you're at, is always fun. Like they're always interesting. And so like I feel like one of the big one. I mean, just like the whole coronavirus thing was like brought on onslaught of conspiracy stuff. But like when you see something like the Epstein thing happen, and you're like watching it. Like, I literally remember watching the news, or not the news, because I don't really watch that, but I was watching the news for me is like YouTube. So I was watching this guy on YouTube, and he was talking about, he was like, it was a podcast, and they're literally discussing the Epstein case. They're like, yeah, this guy literally has a pedophile island. They do all this crazy stuff, yada, yada, yada. It sounded like absolutely insane to me. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, if this is real, then like anything could be real. And literally the guys in the podcast, they said this. They're like, okay, so if he's in jail right now, he's locked up in New York, Jeffrey Epstein. And if he basically, they're saying like, I guarantee, these two guys on this podcast, they're like, I guarantee he gets killed. And everyone's like, whoa, yeah, like who's going to kill him? Like someone's just going to kill him while he's in jail. Like he's on like whatever. And the person's like, yeah, watch, guarantee he gets killed. And then the next day I see something that's like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein's on like suicide watch, tried to kill himself. And I'm like, wait, what? And then like 2-3 days later or whatever, I see like another YouTube video about it where it's like, yeah, somebody, or he killed himself, excuse me. And then I saw all the memes and everything. But to me, like at that moment, because I had like listened to it beforehand and saw it happen, I was like, what? Like, who killed him? Like, it like melted my brain for a second. I was like, who is more power? Like if he's in, like, the president and whatever put him in jail, and there's the guards in jail, who's more powerful than them that they can just go in and just kill him? And everyone's like, well, he killed himself. And it's like, oh yeah, okay.
And no video evidence, nothing.
Yeah.
All right.
But dude, I remember thinking that, and I was telling you about this,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I remember thinking about that, and I was like, who is more powerful than this, like, than these people? So then I was like, holy crap, like, I don't know anything about anything, so I better just not talk about anything at all.
It's a good mindset, though. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and stop assuming you do based upon what you're fed in any single source of where you get any information anywhere. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and it's just all beliefs, right? There's truths and there's beliefs. And I think people get so ingrained in their beliefs as truths that you don't even open your mind to the possibility of some of that stuff. But dude, you're right on the money. It's mind melting type stuff when you dig into these. Connect your own dots. That's what I have to say. Don't pass judgment on people who look into some of these things and and draw their own conclusions, because at the end of the day, you've got beliefs and you've got truth. Sadhguru talks about this. You believe, you don't have any factual evidence in a belief. In a truth you do, and it's one and the same, and it's hard to draw those dots. But I didn't know Clay and Company was a conspiracy podcast.
Yeah, we are. We're starting off strong. This is episode 4. Episode 5 is going to be loaded with conspiracy.
Is COVID-19 real? That's
that'll be my next headline. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I always think it's interesting to talk about this because like the Epstein thing is a proven thing. Like it happened. And like I said before, conspiracies are fun. So I'm always curious if the person I'm talking to, like where they stand on conspiracies. Because there's some people like that simply from a perspective of like, oh, I don't want to be like seen as like an idiot, or I don't want to look dumb. They're just insecure and will dismiss everything. They're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he's not a pedophile. Like, he didn't have a pedophile at all. But then there's also the flip side of the coin where people take it like way too far.
They've got tinfoil all over their apartments and covered up eyeballs on different posters.
Yeah.
Got the other side of the spectrum as well, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that other side is the people that like they figured out. It's like the Epstein thing. Like when I first figured out the Epstein thing, I was like, holy shit, I don't know anything. But then, so those people are like, oh my God, the government lied to me, or like so-and-so lied to me. And then they just go back. They're just the opposite side of the spectrum. Once they figure out like one thing, I feel like there's a good middle ground with conspiracies. And that's what I'm interested in like hearing the other people's opinions on.
I couldn't agree more, man. There's a good middle ground. You don't want to be like totally, hey, I'm just so closed-minded to anything else other than what I'm told and what I believe. And you also don't want to be the guy with tinfoil all over himself, like literally wrapped in tinfoil. Like you got to find a good middle ground. I'm personally, man, I'm in the middle ground. I love hearing the theories and I love diving into them and seeing everybody else's take. But I mean, I don't have tinfoil all over myself.
I mean, to your point, like we both are looking for like, we want the evidence on it. Yeah. Like I want some I can do a little dot connecting and do some stuff, but if there's a little bit of evidence, I'm like, okay, now we can have the discourse on it. But like at the same time, like a lot of this stuff, like even if you like just take, one conspiracy or one idea and you start like poking into a little bit, like you said, a lot of this stuff is opinionated and it's just people's opinions. The second you like attach your like ego to the idea, all of a sudden you've gone too far, because now if you're like wrapped up, if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to defend super hard against a certain position when I don't know if it's true or not, it's just the thing that I like dot connected, then all of a sudden it's like your ego is like at battle because someone else doesn't believe what you believe. Like, it doesn't matter if me and you believe the same thing, but like if maybe I dot connect a little bit, I'm like, I think this could be the case. I think that those are the things that are fun to talk about, as long as the person you're talking about it with isn't like, way too involved. involved.
Right. I totally get it, man. That's why I think me and you have such good conversations about some of that stuff. And you show me a lot of the resources that you're looking at. And then I get to bring my own opinion. And then we have the conversation, which I think is so awesome.
That's the most fun thing. Like that's why, you know what we should do for the next podcast? We should pull up some articles or some things so we can dive into it. And because I feel like we could do like a good debate or discourse on it. I think that's why I wanted to have Muzz on here too. I think we could have a nice debate discourse on a lot of things and just like pull stuff up and see what we can find.
I love it.
Not to dive into the I don't even know what I'm talking about in terms of conspiracies. I'm just talking about like fun like or interesting topics that are going on in the world right now.
Area 51. Area 51 would be a great one to dive into.
Yeah, I feel like they're like, dude, Area 51, I feel like has gotten like bumped way to the bottom of people's like no one even cares about it anymore. I feel like there was that big thing where it was like Storm Area 51, but that was like kind of a joke. And then
that was like 200 guys on Facebook.
Yeah, that was a joke. And then like everyone knows like there's no aliens there anymore.
Well. I beg to differ.
Well, but Bob Lazar said they're at a place called S4 or something like that, not Area 51. But
I had a buddy who I grew up with who had a grandpa who worked at Area 51. And he didn't share too much in detail, but of the information that was shared based upon all the other evidence that's out there, all of the firsthand accounts, the Bob Lazar documentaries, it is crazy that that's like forgotten about nowadays.
Yeah.
That's so hidden and so confidential to where, I mean, they probably are working on alien spacecrafts and there's probably aliens down there. But again, it's us connecting dots, and that's the beauty.
Well, so the weird thing is, and we haven't talked about this one much yet, is like they're like releasing a ton of information about that stuff now, like a ton of stuff about aliens, and the government's releasing all this. Like Joe Rogan just had that guy on his podcast talking about that. Like there's like that big, like long shaped meteor that came through our galaxy, and it was like or not our solar system. It like came through, but basically he was saying like this was probably an alien craft, and then the Pentagon released information, and then there's those guys from the Navy, and like I feel like they're starting to release it in little bits, and like that almost feels sketchier to me. Like what are they trying to do?
They're gonna make aliens look like the bad guys. That's what they're setting up for.
Yeah.
But again, that's for another podcast.
Yeah, we'll keep that one for another time. Okay, cool. Well, we'll wrap this up. Thank you guys for listening. This is episode 4, I think, Nate. So you capped us off here. We will hit episode 5 strong with some nice conspiracy stuff. And then we have our event in Miami this weekend, so I'll see you there. And for those of you guys listening, hit all the buttons except for the dislike button, obviously. Show Nate some love and support here. And then share the podcast if you will, or if you feel so kind. And Nate, any parting words for them?
Repping the 90s kids today. Only parting words I have for all the listeners. If you've made it all the way to this part of the podcast, keep on listening. This guy's dropping knowledge. He's dropping value left and right.
That's the guests. That's on the guests dropping knowledge.
And check out the 90s kids.
Yeah, check out the 90s kids, and we'll see you on here, Nate, again for some conspiracy talk here at some point.
Recurring guest.
Yeah, you might have to be a co-host on this puppy.
You let me know, dude. I'll jive. I'll be hey, we got 10 minutes remaining type deal. I'll be in your ear.
All right. Yeah, let's try to get some. We'll work something out. All right.
We'll get you editing, dude. You don't you just hit start and then stop. You honestly could let this ride the whole time, and then we could figure out and change all the noise levels and do all that stuff.
Dude, I don't do anything. I just click record and then I upload.
That's the way to do it. That's the way you should.
Guys, that's how much effort I'm putting in. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe button.
Oh, jeez. Well, thank you, Clay. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Yes, sir. All right, guys. We'll see you next episode. Peace.